everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we are looking at English Language Paper 2 question 5. The question we have on the screen is the following. Any child under the age of 18 who steals should be subject to a criminal record. Society has to send out a strong message that crime does not pay. Write a letter to your local MP expressing your viewpoint on this topic. Okay, so the question is asking us again to write a letter. Now, when writing a letter, there are certain things you need to include. So first of all, you need to include the use of addresses. Secondly, you need to include a date. So make sure when you include the date, it's the full date. Thirdly, a formal mode. So in terms of a formal mode, for example, we may decide to use dear sir / madam. Or if we have a named recipient, we will have the named recipient. So the recipient is the person you're writing to. And we already know from our scenario here, we are writing to our local MP. Another important part here is to have effectively and fluently sequenced paragraphs. So each paragraph that you write, it needs to link with one another. And finally, an appropriate sign-off. Mode of signing off. So as you are writing a letter, you will end the letter with either, I'm going to write here, yours sincerely, or you are going to end it with yours faithfully. So how we know which one to use? So I would use yours sincerely. Sorry, if I go back here. So yours sincerely. Yeah, so as mentioned, you would use yours sincerely if you know the person you're writing to. If you don't know the name of the person you're writing to, you'd use yours faithfully. So that's the key sort of difference between the two. Now, that's again what you need to include, and this is all mentioned by the exam board for you to include when writing a letter. Now, we also need to know the sort of structure, how to structure a formal letter. So that's something that I would also want to touch on very quickly. So we'll just do it here in maybe red. You can use red, that's fine. So when writing a letter, the first thing you need to include on the top right hand side, so here, on the top right hand would be your address. I'm just going to label this your address. So this can be made up, it doesn't have to be real. And then following that, just below that here, you will have the full date. So here you need to include the full date. Full date. And then on the left hand side and slightly below, this would be the recipient's address. So the person you're writing to, so recipient's address. Then following that, you will start off with dear. So as you're writing a letter, we already know who we're writing to. It would be dear MP. Okay, and then as we sort of scroll down, you would know that when you write a letter, you need to have a nice structure when you are writing a letter. So remember, again, you are advised to plan for this question. So when you plan for this question, you need to have a nice structure. So we can do this on the next page perhaps. So if I go back here, so how I would structure the answer is the following. So you would need an introduction. So in terms of the introduction, you set out the purpose of your letter. So set out the purpose of your letter. So why are you writing this letter? And then after that, the main body will consist of the following. So this would be perhaps 3 to 4 main paragraphs. So 3/4 main paragraphs on different topics. And they are linked. Okay, so make sure, remember, as mentioned, they need to link from one paragraph to another, and obviously towards the end you will have your conclusion. So in the conclusion, you are giving actions or suggesting actions, suggestions, and even recommendations. So what can be done to actually combat this issue or this dilemma? Okay, and then obviously towards the end you'll have your sign off. Okay, so remember, these are some certain things you need to include. And when you are writing your letter, remember what kind of tone are you expected to use? You are expected to use a formal tone. Okay, so a formal tone is required throughout the letter, and also when writing your letter, make sure you include standard English. So standard English is required throughout your letter as you are writing a formal letter. So standard English is also expected. And one thing I've seen a lot of students do is use contractions, but as you are writing a formal letter, you need to avoid contractions. So contractions include, for example, don't. It includes using can't. Okay, so you'd write it without the apostrophe, would be do not, and it would be cannot. Okay, so these are some things that you want to avoid when writing your letter. Now what we are going to do is we are going to look at the question itself. We are going to create a plan as well in terms of how to tackle this question. So the question has no right or wrong answer. The exam board are looking for how convincing and how compelling your answer can be. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rub this out, and we're going to look at how to plan this question. Now you are advised to plan for this question, and you're expected to spend around 5 minutes on the plan. Now as we are sort of explaining the plan, we may take slightly longer, but over time you should be able to write a plan within 5 minutes. So as mentioned, you may decide to come up with some points in terms of why you agree or disagree. So I'm just going to highlight some keywords within the question. So any child under the age of 18 who steals should be subject to a criminal record. So that's the first part. The second part reads the following. Society has to send out a strong message that crime does not pay. Write a letter. Remember, you're writing a letter here. Write a letter to your local MP expressing your viewpoint on this topic. So in terms of the question, I would create a plan. So perhaps an agree and disagree. So here we'll have agree, and on the other side we'll have disagree. So in terms of why I may agree or disagree, I'm just going to sort of jot down some reasons to why I agree or even disagree. So first of all, I would say a crime is a crime, and it should be dealt with. The second one is it deters children. So if children are aware that they are going to get a criminal record, it can deter them from committing crime. And of course that is a good thing because it will reduce the number of crime that is taking place. And finally, the third one is others will be extra cautious as there will be repercussions. Okay, so these are some reasons to why someone may agree. In terms of why some may disagree, I would say children, they are young. Okay, and over time people change. If you think about yourself, how you were in year 7, are you the same person in year 11? Probably not. So this is another notion that you may want to sort of address, that people change over time. Another one is that it ruins family-friend relationships. If you are to commit a crime, your family and friends may look at you in a different light. The third one is that it has a significant impact on your mental health. If you think about it, if you were to know someone who committed a crime, it will impact their mental health because they would notice, perhaps as a result of family-friend relationships being broken, that people start to distance themselves. So that's something that you may want to sort of consider as well on their mental health. And the last one I'm just going to add here is that it can affect employment. So in the future, when they're applying for jobs, it can affect their employment as well. So these are some reasons to why someone may agree or disagree. So you've got 1 here, 2, 3 points for agree, 1, 2, 3, 4 for disagree. So this is something that you may use as guidance. And again, it's important for you to plan for this question. Otherwise, you'd be writing from the top of your head. And often when you write from the top of your head, your answer is not as good as you may expect. So this is my plan. And remember, this is persuasive writing. So I would want to use persuasive language. So convincing, compelling writing. And how do I do this? I use the acronym, the FOREST. So I'm just going to label this here very quickly. So DAFOREST. So DeForest stands for direct address, alliteration, anecdotes, facts and figures, onomatopoeia, oxymoron, repetition, rhetorical question. E is emotive language, expert opinion, S is similes, and T is rule of 3. So these are some sort of techniques that you'd use for question 5 for language paper 2. So what I'll do is I'll get started with the answer. So as we are writing a letter, I'm going to skip the addresses for now. I just want to get started with the question. So as we are writing a letter, if you recall from the previous page, you will start off with Dear MP. So we already know who we are writing to. So I would start off by saying, recently, it has come to my attention that children under the age of 18 may be given a criminal record if they steal which is, I'm going to use a list of 3 now, which is clearly unfair, unjust, and unreasonable. Full stop. Please consider this. Would you like, so I'll use a rhetorical question now. Would you like to have a criminal record simply because you stole a bar of chocolate at a young, impressionable age? And society was sending a strong message by criminalizing you for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life. So I've used a rhetorical question now. Again, to question and get the readers thinking. So I'm already starting to use a range of language techniques. Remember to use ambitious vocabulary as well, and a variety of punctuation. So I'm going to use some punctuation and ambitious vocabulary. How preposterous. Criminal records should not be given to under 18s. To under 18s, semicolon. Remember, you get marks for using a variety of punctuation. Criminal records should be reserved for serious crimes. As otherwise, so remember, you have to be cautious with your spelling, your punctuation and grammar. So as otherwise, we are creating a nanny state. So a nanny state is a country or an area where they have laws, regulations, legislation which is overprotective. So here I'm referring to that, and I'm showing some sophistication within my answer. If I just scroll down, children should be treated differently. Children should be treated differently. Children should be treated differently to adults, as they are not fully culpable, Remember to use ambitious vocabulary, culpable, comma, meaning that we need, remember the word we is inclusive, it makes the reader feel a part of this argument, that we need to be compassionate and compassionate, not punitive, and then full stop. Now what I would like to do is probably embed some statistics to make my answer sound convincing, and again to add weight to my argument. So I'll move on to plugging in a statistic. A recent study conducted. Remember, when you give statistics, make sure it's from authority. So it could be from a university, a news report, so someone or an organization with authority, knowledge or experience. The reason being, it adds weight to your answer. So a recent study conducted by the Metropolitan Police, suggested that 73% of police officers think that criminalizing children for petty theft is, maybe we can use the word ridiculous, harmful, and will destabilize the justice system. Full stop. If this statistic is ignored, we can use a dash here for emphasis. Police will be forced to arrest young people, knowing that they will become criminals. And then I would put a full stop here. Full stop. Now I would probably want to use some repetition or even a rule of 3. This should not be an option. This should not be an option. For our children. Okay, for our children, comma, in our developed world and in our country. So that becomes a rule of 3. So, and in our developed world and in our country, where we can help educate, comma, I'll probably have to move on to the next page, where we can help educate, and then after that, comma, inform and train young people to take moral responsibility for their actions and deter them from stealing in the first place. Okay, so that would be, I would say that would be my first paragraph complete. So I'm going to move on to paragraph 2 now. This is where I'll be talking about again, due children's brain development, and over time, children's brain changes, their thoughts change, the behavior changes as well. And perhaps I can include an anecdote. So I'm going to start the second paragraph. So I may start off with the following. So furthermore, children's brain development is not complete before they are 18, before they are 18 years old. So before they are 18 years old. Full stop. Therefore, they deserve, there's no comma here actually. Okay, so I need to go back. So therefore, they deserve wholeheartedly to be treated with leniency. So I'm going to use some antidepressants here. Leniency does not mean that there should be consequences, or I can say repercussions. We can say consequences, fine. That there should be no consequences. Leniency is the humane and just way forward, in this situation. Okay, full stop. Again, I may want to use a rhetorical question again. So I could say, how did our country get to the point where this issue is being seriously debated, in Parliament? And a question mark. So that's my rhetorical question. And now what I would say is I can probably add an anecdote here. So from personal experience, again, this is not real, you can make it up. I understand that some young people can be reckless. So I'm just gonna scroll down here. Sorry, if I just scroll and go back to here. Yep, that some young people can be reckless. And then I'm going to plug in my anecdote here. So a close friend of mine was caught shoplifting a bottle of Prime. So I could say was caught shoplifting a bottle of Prime. So was caught shoplifting a bottle of Prime. To those of you who don't know what Prime is, it's an energy drink that a lot of people are going crazy about. Prime, hang on, didn't write this clearly. Of Prime, and was absolutely mortified. So let's use some ambitious vocabulary. And was absolutely mortified. So mortified means embarrassed, okay? And was absolutely mortified as a result. So that would be my anecdote as a result. And being caught once, so being caught once, make sure the anecdote reflects your point of view or your argument. Being caught once was enough to prevent him from following this path of self-destruction. Hyphen self-destruction. However, that was as a result of the parental involvement. So now I'm going to talk about the importance of parents. So that was as a result of the parental involvement. Parental involvement. Okay, parental involvement. His parents grounded him. His parents grounded him and snatched his freedom. Okay, and snatched his freedom. So again, I'm using a metaphor here, and snatched his freedom as a result of his awful immoral behavior, and this home sanction was enough to stop him from going even further down a path of self-destruction. You can say a path of self-destruction. Okay, and then full stop. So again, that tells us how the anecdote is relevant to our argument. Sanity must prevail then. No person under the age of 18 should be given a criminal record. Okay, and then give a solution. What should be done, or what can be done? A criminal record, as mentioned at the beginning of the video. Instead, so this is my solution or suggestion. Instead, we need. Okay, let's scroll down. Can I scroll down? No, hang on. No, it's just. Instead, we need. Okay, I'll just do on the next page. Instead, we need. Yeah, there we go. Okay, instead, we need school, parents, and police. School, parents, and police to work together to provide education that stops this type of School, parents, and police to work together to provide education that stops this type of misdemeanor. Misdemeanor, for your reference here, is minor crimes. Okay, so it's petty crimes, so that includes even if a child was to steal a bar of chocolate. That stops this type of misdemeanor before it happens. Before it happens. Full stop. There would be outrage. There would be outrage if their precious children, were arrested and treated the same as violent offenders. Offenders, comma, therefore, again reiterating the solution, therefore education will help to avoid this terrible affliction on our young people. Okay, if funding was offered to support programs of intervention in schools and with parents, comma, then no child would face the possibility of having a criminal record for life as a result of a preventable action. Okay, full stop. Sorry if I go back here. Action, and then full stop. So that would be the second paragraph, and then I'll probably move on to paragraph 3. So if I just zoom out here and zoom back in. So ultimately we must consider contacting parents before their children transform, so I can use some alliteration, transform into cunning criminals, and then full stop. In time, this will only not only be a national concern, but a global problem too. As often other countries follow the laws, rules, and regulations of the United Kingdom, of the UK, I can say. Parents all want their children their children, to be healthy, optimistic, and useful citizens, and therefore would immediately surge forward to ensure they can stop this law. Full stop. So now we want to sort of give some action or a command, almost like an imperative. I urge you to stop this law, in the House of Commons, COMMONS, by blocking the motion, and encouraging your fellow members of Parliament to also follow suit, as otherwise we will be maybe go to the next page. We will be endangering the youth of today's future. Full stop. If you don't stop this terrible law, your political party remember we're writing to the MP here, your political party will benefit for years to come as young people will vote for you, and you will show the world, let's get rid of this, will show the world that you are sensible. Full stop. Undeniably, this action will lead to a reduction in young people being punished in an extreme way, which threatens which threatens to ruin their future and hopefully lead to more personal responsibility. Personal responsibility, full stop. The youth, so I'm going to use maybe a metaphor here. So the youth of today's future, so the youth of today's future lies in your hands. Lies in your hands. And I seriously doubt, that you want to fuel further, so exacerbate essentially, to fuel further the mental health crisis that is gripping the young people of our nation. Full stop. Stopping this bill will absolutely help reduce the mental health crisis from gaining any more momentum. Okay, full stop. Okay, so that would be my third paragraph, and I would need probably my conclusion now, so giving an action of what can be done in terms of the solution. So I'd probably want to show some variation in my sentence length. So to conclude this letter, I could say action must be taken. The short simple sentence, full stop. It must be taken now. That's the imperative. It must be taken now. Full stop. So you use some direct address as well. Once again, comma, I ask you, so direct address. I ask you to consider whether you would like to have a criminal record, because you did something silly, and society and society was sending a strong message. Full stop. That's actually a rhetorical question. So you're asking a question here. Surely, comma, you know, it is time to acknowledge. It's just time to acknowledge the truth and admit that this law, so again we can use a list here, and admit that this law is unfair, unjust, and would be detrimental to the next generation of young people, who are already living in a world where there are multiple issues and problems that are causing stress. So maybe a list of 3 that are causing stress, anxiety, and fear. Full stop. Well, actually, fear. Get rid of this. And fear in unparalleled ways. And then finally, stop this bill now for the sanity of our youth. Okay? Of our youth, and then full stop. Then obviously, as we're writing a letter, so I'm just going to zoom out. I don't really have space, but I'll just have to squeeze it in. You would end the letter with, it'd be yours sincerely, comma, and then your name, etc. Okay, so that would probably be my completed answer for this question. So that is again the expected standard for question 5. So if I just read it back and show you what needs to be done. So that's again something that you need to remember, and that would be the entire answer for the question 5. So I just wanted to sort of label and annotate what went well here in order for it to achieve an excellent mark and an excellent response, okay, for this question. So now remember, in the mark scheme they do state for you to show compelling and convincing communication. Now when we show compelling and convincing communication, we have to use a range of language techniques, we have to use a range of punctuation, and also a range of vocabulary. So let's have a look at the first paragraph just to show you where we've picked up the mark. So recently it has come to my attention that children under the age of 18 may be given a criminal record if they steal, which is clearly unfair, unjust, and unreasonable. So that in itself here, so as highlighted, is a rule of 3. You get marks for those as well. Please consider this. Would you like to have a criminal record simply because you stole a bar of chocolate at a young, impressionable age, and society was sending a strong message by criminalizing you for the rest of your life? So that is an example of using rhetorical question. How preposterous. Look at that. That is ambitious vocabulary. How preposterous. I've used a colon for effect as well. Criminal records should not be given to under 18s. Semicolon. Criminal records should be reserved for serious crimes, as otherwise we are creating a nanny state. Okay, so that's showing sophistication as well. Children should be treated differently to adults as they are not fully culpable, meaning that we need to be compassionate, not punitive. Again, look at the extensive and ambitious use of vocabulary. This is mentioned in the mark schemes. It's important that you follow this. A recent study conducted by the Metropolitan Police suggested that 73% of police officers think that criminalizing children for petty theft is ridiculous. So that's an example of statistics. So you get marks for those as well. If this statistic is ignored, police would be forced to arrest young people knowing that they will become criminals. This should not be an option for our children in our developed world. And in our country, where we can help educate, inform and train young people to take moral responsibility for their actions and deter them from stealing in the first place. So that was the first paragraph. Now, when you write your answer, you need to make sure your answer is compelling and convincing throughout the letter. So for sure, this is a level 4 response. And this is what you need to follow in terms of question 5. So I hope that has given everyone a better understanding of how to write an excellent answer and how to structure a letter as well, as often students struggle when formulating a letter. And that takes us towards the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and share for more education related videos. We are going to do a series here. So we will do a walkthrough of the entire language paper 1 and paper 2. So please subscribe, like and share for more education related videos. Thank you.